My ex-wife betrayed me with my brother, the golden child of our family, and gave birth to his child. Now, my family, who has always loathed me, is begging for financial help after I received a promotion. At 29, I recently divorced my 27-year-old wife. The infidelity had been ongoing with my estranged brother, also 27. I found out about the affair 4 months ago when she revealed she was pregnant. At first, she tried to convince me the baby was mine, but my brother's frequent visits raised my suspicions. So, I took the step of checking her phone. When I confronted her with what I found, she eventually admitted the truth: she had been cheating with my brother. This confession forced her hand, as it was clear she could no longer hide it. My family had cut ties with me since I left home at 18, treating me like an outsider while elevating my brother to a position of admiration. I thought it odd that they threw a party for him without inviting me, but when I saw the cake, I lost control. I confronted my parents, asking why they hadn't celebrated my achievements instead. They told me that after receiving my acceptance letter, they didn't want to make my brother feel left out, so they honored him instead. They suggested that I should support my brother rather than throw a tantrum. Their words shattered me, and I resolved never to return. I financed my college education through loans and hard work, eventually sharing a small apartment with a friend after graduation. I stopped communicating with my parents, and they never attempted to reach out to me either. Years passed. Last year, my brother reached out online, wanting to reconnect. Despite the years of hurt, I agreed, thinking things might have changed. I got married about 2 years ago, living comfortably, but the scars from my family remained. When we finally met, the atmosphere was awkward but tense. They seemed to be trying to atone for the past, which made me feel obligated to reciprocate. I invited them to my home, a decision I would later regret. My brother and ex met, began an affair, and she soon became pregnant. I was thrilled when I first heard she was pregnant, believing the baby was mine, but my brother's increased visits soon made me uneasy. It felt wrong when he would touch my wife's belly and speak to it affectionately. My ex insisted it was innocent, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my brother was too involved. 6 months into her pregnancy, while she slept, I scoured her phone, and my worst fears came true. The messages between my ex and brother confirmed they had been together for months, and the baby was his. They planned to deceive me, intending to reveal the truth only after the baby was born so she could divorce me and be with him, relying on my child support. The next morning, I confronted her. She initially denied everything, but ultimately, she confessed. That marked the end of our 2-year marriage. My parents sided with my brother and ex, despite their claims of equal importance. It was all hollow talk. When my ex and brother announced their engagement on social media, my family rallied behind them. They showed no concern for how they had shattered my mental health and trust. My ex had deceived me for half a year, making me believe the baby was mine. I felt as though I had lost both my wife and child, which cut deeply. My parents told me it was for the best, urging me to be happy for my ex and brother. They even suggested I join their celebrations. That was the final straw. I severed ties with them once again. The divorce left me financially drained, with my ex walking away with a substantial settlement and my car, as my family backed her false claims that I was toxic and controlling, lies I knew to be untrue. Despite losing a significant amount in the divorce, I retained the house. When the final papers were signed, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I wouldn't have to see those people again. Fortunately, there's no waiting period for divorce in my area, and my ex didn't contest, allowing me to wrap things up swiftly. Moving on proved challenging, but I threw myself into my work and focused on self-improvement. My hard work paid off, culminating in a promotion 2 weeks ago, a better position, a higher salary, and a new company car. I was ecstatic and treated myself to a solo dinner at one of my favorite restaurants. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of sharing the news online. A day or 2 later, my mother reached out, asking to see me. I was taken aback since we hadn't spoken since the divorce. I ignored her messages, but she persisted with phone calls. Eventually, she showed up at my office, creating a scene that forced me to promise a visit just to make her leave. When I arrived at their new home, a much larger place, no doubt financed by my ex's settlement, I found only my parents there. My brother was out, and my ex was still asleep. After a few minutes of awkward silence, my father abruptly revealed that my brother had lost his job and they were struggling financially. They had seen my promotion post and hoped I could lend a hand. I was stunned by their audacity to ask for help after everything. I sat there in disbelief before walking out without a word. As I opened the door, I encountered my brother standing outside. My parents begged me to stay, but I ignored them and made my way to my car. The rain poured heavily, drenching me and fueling my bad mood. Suddenly, my parents and brother chased after me, pleading once again for assistance. My brother, usually so arrogant, was now begging. It took a lot for him to lower himself like that, so I understood they were in dire straits. But I snapped. I told them they could beg on the streets for all I cared. A stranger would likely show them more pity than I would. Then I climbed into my car and drove away, leaving them behind in the rain. I won't lie, it felt satisfying to stand my ground against my family after they mistreated me my whole life. It's been 2 days since that confrontation, and now I'm questioning my decision. My mother has been bombarding me with texts, and guilt is starting to creep in. I know I could spare some money without it affecting me too much, but it feels like they're just trying to use me. So, regarding whether to help my family after they sided with my ex in the divorce, I've decided not to. This was a significant decision for me, as I wrestled with the guilt of abandoning them. However, the realization hit me, they've done that to me for years. They were the ones who threw me under the bus during the divorce, so why should I feel any obligation to help them now? I finally told my mother to stop pestering me or I'd have to involve my lawyers, which wouldn't end well for them. That didn't sit well with them. A few days ago, my brother showed up at my place, eager to talk. He expressed sympathy for how I'd been treated growing up but couldn't help but emphasize that he was simply better than me. According to him, that's why he received better treatment. He suggested I should let go of my grudges like a child and just help them since they were in a tough spot. I couldn't help but laugh at his delusion. Instead of trying to manipulate me, I told him he should focus on finding a job rather than wasting his time trying to convince me to give them money. That hit a nerve, and he erupted, accusing me of jealousy because our parents and even my ex preferred him. He claimed my refusal to help was just revenge. I didn't even bother to argue. I simply agreed, saying that indeed, my only motivation was revenge, and there was nothing he could do about it. That made him furious, and he threatened to come after me for the money, insisting I'd regret how I spoke to him. Honestly, I'm not worried. He can try to intimidate me all he wants, but I know he's not capable of doing anything to me. I'm completely unfazed. Update 2. 3 days ago, my brother came back to try and convince me to help them, but he didn't succeed. My parents had already tried and failed as well. Then my ex decided to call. I hesitated to answer but ultimately did, knowing they'd probably show up at my door again if I didn't. Talking to her was eye-opening. It's astounding how entitled and cruel they can be. She began politely, acknowledging that she and her family were struggling financially. She asked me to consider helping them, urging me to be the bigger person. She attempted to pull at my heartstrings by reminding me that my parents had paid for everything while I was growing up and that she had tried her best to be a good wife. Sure, except for the part where my parents always favored my brother and she cheated on me with him. So, yeah, her arguments didn't sway me at all. I told her I felt bad about their situation but was already paying her alimony, which she didn't even deserve since she cheated. Yet, somehow, she and my family turned it into a narrative that painted me as the bad guy for their benefit. During our call, she broke down in tears, accusing me of being selfish and heartless. The irony wasn't lost on me. When I still refused to help, she threatened to take legal action, claiming she'd demand a higher alimony and drag me back to court to humiliate me again. Honestly, I'd love to see her try. The last time we went through this, I was emotionally drained and depressed, so I didn't fight back or challenge any of their lies. I simply agreed to pay the alimony without contesting their claims. I never was toxic or controlling, none of that was true. She had no justification for cheating on me, let alone demanding money from me after our divorce. But back then, I just wanted the whole ordeal to end, regardless of the financial consequences. This time, though, I was ready to fight back and teach my family a lesson they wouldn't forget. Update 3. In a surprising twist, my ex-wife followed through on her threat and filed for an increased alimony, citing my promotion as the reason. But this time, I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I reached out to our mutual friends, filling them in on the situation and the real reasons behind our split. Most of them only knew we had separated, so their shock was palpable when they learned the truth. I asked them to stand by me and testify if necessary, and they agreed without hesitation. I also instructed my lawyer to help me discontinue the alimony arrangement altogether. My ex didn't deserve a cent from me, and I was determined to make that clear. I spent the next few days gathering evidence to showcase how my family had treated me poorly throughout my life. I wanted to expose their hypocrisy, especially now that they were hounding me for money simply because I'd received a promotion. I managed to convince a few cousins who had witnessed the way I was treated as an outsider in my own home to speak on my behalf, and they kindly agreed. Despite our lack of closeness, my lawyer was thrilled with the evidence we compiled. He believed we could present a strong case to stop alimony payments entirely. Although it was already known that she cheated on me, the narrative she had constructed, painting me as the villain and my brother as the hero, was built on lies. This time, I wasn't going to back down or remain silent. During the proceedings, my family had nothing to say for themselves when I presented video testimonials from friends and relatives, all of whom confirmed that the image they had painted of me was false. They likely thought they could slip through this situation just like they had before. But I was no longer the emotionally fragile person I once was. The hardship they had put me through had only made me stronger. Yesterday, it was officially finalized. I wouldn't have to pay my ex any alimony in light of the new evidence that had emerged. When I realized it was over, I felt like the happiest man alive. Seeing the smug looks wiped off my family's faces was incredibly satisfying, and my ex looked like she was on the verge of tears. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I was just relieved to have put this chapter of my life behind me. I had planned to head home, treat myself to some delicious takeout, and unwind with a movie, but, of course, my family was determined to sabotage my happiness. As I approached my house, I spotted my brother's car parked out front, which puzzled me. I shrugged it off and walked inside, only to find my family standing at my door, blocking my entrance. I was taken aback but quickly decided not to show my surprise. I told them to get off my property, warning them that I'd call the police if they didn't. That's when my dad stepped in, berating me for what I'd done earlier that day. He lectured me about how I should be ashamed of myself for refusing to help them when they needed it most. I stood there silently, refusing to engage. I knew they were trying to provoke me, hoping to get an emotional reaction that would lead me to act rashly, but I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. My silence only fueled their frustration. My mother demanded that I treat my dad with respect and talk to him, but I remained quiet. I could see their agitation growing, as they clearly hoped for a confrontation. Eventually, my brother snapped. He grabbed me by the collar and tried to hit me, but my dad pulled him back just in time, shouting that I was nothing but a jealous loser who would never amount to anything. Coming from an unemployed man living with our parents and begging his brother for money, that comment was almost laughable. I told them they needed to leave, or I would call the cops. I reminded them that given their financial situation, it would be wise to make a quick exit. Reluctantly, they walked away, but not before my mother made one last attempt to guilt me into giving them money. It didn't work, and eventually, they left. It's been almost a day since that encounter, and I haven't heard from them since. I sincerely hope it stays that way. Now, on to the next story. Story 2. I discovered my wife was cheating on me with my stepdaughter's father, and I immediately filed for divorce. I'm a 33-year-old man, and my 33-year-old wife betrayed me in December. I walked in on them at his house, fully aware of what was happening. It was the man I had been kicking off our property for years while managing his anger. Meanwhile, I was juggling household chores, taking care of our pets, and looking after my stepdaughter. When we got married, my wife insisted I donate my old car to drive one of hers. I even worked part-time at the law firm where she was employed, all while waking up at 6 a.m., and often not finishing my chores until 2 a.m. I tried to forgive her, but I kept catching her communicating with him and making plans to sleep with other male friends, all while she assured me she wanted to work on our marriage. She manipulated me emotionally and sexually, claiming that her infidelity was my fault because I should have done something to prevent it. She used guilt and threats to coerce me into sex when I had made it clear I wasn't ready. After I discovered her affair, she became pregnant, but when I requested a DNA test, she quickly got an abortion, blaming me for the decision. Last month, I made the difficult decision to leave and quit my job. Since then, my family has been my lifeline, but every day feels like a struggle to get out of bed and even take care of myself. My marriage lasted less than a year, and I'm left with no spousal support, no car, and no job. I've lost half my family, her family and my stepdaughter, and I find myself homeless and broke. If it weren't for my family's support, I would be completely without shelter. my mental health has plummeted, especially after discovering that her infidelity began even while we were dating. It feels like everything was a facade, and I'm left to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. I was cheated on and mistreated, yet I'm the one who seems to be facing all the consequences. My lawyer, a trusted family friend, has told me there's not much I can do. I'm overwhelmed with emotion, unsure how to navigate this pain. I know I need to take small steps to get back on my feet, like finding a new job, but even leaving the house feels insurmountable right now. I'm grappling with severe depression and anxiety, especially in public settings. Spending time with friends is exhausting, and I often find myself in tears by the time I drive home. I feel utterly broken, and nothing seems to be getting better. Update 1. My ex-wife is bringing her affair partner to our divorce hearing. A friend informed me that this is her final jab at me. I'm unsure how to handle this situation. Several friends have offered to come for support, but some suggest I should just ignore them. What would you do? Update 2. Today was the day of my divorce hearing. My previous posts detail my entire story, but to recap, I caught my ex-wife in bed with another man just days after Christmas. I attempted to reconcile, but every time, I caught her reaching out to the same guy and even planning to meet with other men while sending inappropriate Snapchats and texts, all while lying about cutting contact. Each time I confronted her, the story was the same. When I finally told her I was leaving and filing for divorce, she threatened to take her life if I went through with it. But here we are, I'm still alive, and she's permanently out of my life. After the courthouse, I hit some new personal records at the gym and felt a surge of positivity. She doesn't know where I live now. I've moved out of town and started a new job. This woman, whom I loved deeply and would have done anything for, took everything from me: my job, my car, my home, my stepdaughter, my marriage, my mental health, and even the potential of a child. Though I suspect the baby was the affair partner's, she aborted it after I asked for a DNA test. This past year has been a continuous nightmare for me, all while she shifted the blame onto me for tearing apart our family. When she arrived this morning, I was already speaking with my lawyer. We only needed to sign the papers in front of the judge. I didn't look at her once, even when she tried to hand me some mail from our old house. I simply took it and walked away. I did notice the affair partner wasn't with her, which was surprising since she had told mutual friends he would attend. The hearing itself went smoothly. I felt stressed and emotional inside but managed to keep a gentle smile and maintain my composure. I could sense she was on the verge of tears, but I never glanced her way. When I got home, I discovered a note mixed in with the mail. It turned out the affair partner wasn't there because he got another girl pregnant. I tore the note up and threw it away. My ex-wife had a loving husband and yet chose to cheat, lie, and hurt me, ultimately for a man who was juggling other relationships. To top it all off, this affair partner despises being a father. He was lazy, abusive to my ex-wife during their relationship, and frequently leaves his daughter with his mother whenever he has her. My stepdaughter calls him by his first name and calls me Dad because she barely knows him. His mother even shed tears on Christmas, celebrating that her granddaughter had me in her life. This new baby is bound to complicate his already tumultuous life. I can only hope that whoever he's having this child with escapes from him for the baby's sake. Despite my energetic demeanor, I feel incredibly lonely today, oscillating between happiness and numbness. I apologize if this all seems disorganized. My emotions are all over the place. I thought I'd feel better, but if I'm being honest, I wish none of us had to suffer through this.